If you were trapped at school and forced to play in a brutal tournament where losing gets you sent to prison, what would you do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the death game in Joker Game. This girl is going to watch her friends die. Chinatsu here is on her way to a study camp on the outskirts of town. It's a government-mandated training session that her entire class has to attend, but something doesn't feel right. The gate to the training camp has been locked shut behind them, and the students arrive at a rundown school building. None of them are impressed, but soon they'll be risking their lives trying to escape this place. The kids all gather inside a classroom when their teacher arrives and announces that he'll be confiscating their phones for the duration of the camp. Reluctantly, the students give them up, and as the teacher takes their devices, this guy Kanda asks what they'll be studying. The man tells them everything will be explained in this video, and it reveals that for this exam, they'll be playing Old Maid. In this game, the students must get rid of all the cards in their hand by forming pairs and taking what they need from other players. Whoever has the Joker card by the end of the game will lose, but soon, they'll see their friends beaten to death right in front of their eyes. The first rule is that students must stay on campus and can only play in the classroom. The second rule is they can form teams with each other to combine their cards, but only if they sign a contract. When this happens, the team will pick a representative to play on their behalf, but if they lose, the entire team will be eliminated. The students find it ridiculous, but the teacher starts handing out bags with cards inside, and when Chinatsu checks what she got, she discovers something horrifying. Looking around, the girl notices none of her classmates are panicking, and some of them already have pairs. But the girl is too nervous to trade cards with anyone. She refuses to betray her friends, and when Minako here checks on her, the girl panics, begging her for help. They both know if she can't get rid of the card, she's going to lose, but her friend knows exactly who they can give it to. Approaching their classmate Shimokawa, they start trading cards with each other, but as the game goes on, the girl makes her biggest mistake. She reaches for Chinatsu's hand and takes the Joker. It's too late for her to take it back, and with their plan successful, the friends decide to stop playing with her, leaving their classmate to suffer alone. Later that day, there are only a few players left in the game, but Chinatsu here notices something. This student Shimokawa is nervous, and she realizes that the girl must still have the Joker. Trying to trick her opponent, the girl shuffles the cards, but the other girl doesn't fall for her trap. Instead, she grabs the two of spades, and Shimokawa here is left with the Joker. She's the first loser of the study camp, but now she must pay the price for failure. Suddenly, a man dressed in white enters the room and shoots her with his syringe gun. Shocked, the others watch the girl stumble towards them and fall down, convulsing on the floor. They don't know what to do and can only watch as the guards come in to take her away. Okay, this is insane. Imagine if the government forced you to go to a summer camp to play Old Maid, but if you lose, you get injected with chemicals and taken to prison. That's a horrifying reality, and we need to figure out how to make sure we win no matter what. These kids have no idea that the losers will be taken to a correctional facility where they'll be forced into another brutal death game. If this is all condoned by the government, then running away is not going to help, because they'll always be able to track you down. We need to play by their rules if we want any chance of surviving this, and that's why I would ask to rewatch this video to write everything down. Now, the most important thing to observe here isn't what's in the video, but what's not in the video. That's because whatever information it leaves out won't be against the rules, and we can use it as a strategy. As scary as it is, this game is extremely simple, and there are tons of ways we can bend these rules in our favor. For example, every student is given 7 cards, and our goal is to choose cards from other players to make pairs. Every time we get a pair, we can discard it until we have no cards left. The danger here is we want to make sure whatever card we are picking from someone isn't the Joker. That's why if they were me, I would simply lay out my cards face up on the table so that anyone who needs a pair can take it from me right away. This strategy eliminates the terrifying risk of accidentally taking the Joker from someone because I'm now giving my cards away instead of choosing them from others. Nowhere in the rules did it say that this wasn't allowed, and in fact, there were only 3 things it prohibited. First of all, you're not allowed to be late to class under any circumstances. Secondly, you can't try to destroy your cards, and the teacher makes sure that nothing is missing before and after each round. Thirdly, you can't get rid of your cards any other way except for playing them in the game, and there are also cameras in every room making sure you don't cheat. These are pretty basic rules, and it means we can cheat any other way we want as long as we are using the mechanics of the game itself. Terrified, the students demand to know what is going on, and the teacher explains that this training camp is actually a way to filter out the useless people of Japan. Only the people with potential get to move on peacefully with their lives, while the losers will be sent to a correctional facility for re-education until they become a contributing member of society. With that, he dismisses them for the day, insisting they go to their dorms, but the kids stand there horrified by this brutal test. That makes 1 student down, with only 26 left to move on to the next round. That night, the students go to the dorms, and Chinatsu's roommates try to figure out how to survive the game. Kana here points out the best strategy is to find a way to get rid of the Joker, and reveals that's exactly how the others won the first game. She walks out of the room, leaving her roommates behind, but this girl Ueda wants to know what she meant. Feeling guilty, the shy girl explains that she worked with her friend and tricked the loser into taking the Joker. If they hadn't done that, she would have been sent to the re-education center, and the girl gets up to leave, wanting some fresh air. Walking downstairs, she spots her roommate Kana heading outside and decides to follow after her. They go back to the school building and the girl notices her, but instead of getting angry, she insists there's something they need to see. Walking up to a balcony, the students see some men standing by a car and reveal they're about to take the loser to the correctional facility. Chinatsu asks why she's so interested, and the girl tells her she only wants to know what happens to the loser, but soon they'll all discover the darker reason she is here. The next day, the students get to the class early, but the teacher notices that 4 people are absent. That means they'll be disqualified for breaking the rules, and the nerd begs the man to let him warn his friend, but the teacher refuses. It's already too late, and he has no choice but to report the missing kids to the guards while his students do nothing to stop him. Frustrated, he decides to show the class what happens if they break the rules, and turns on the TV, playing live stream footage of a missing student. That's when the others realize they're watching him from a hidden camera, and they've all been spied on by the administration. The teacher makes it clear that if they refuse to play, they'll be punished, and on the TV, a man walks into the room. Suddenly, he runs at the boy and starts viciously beating him up. The class is horrified and watch their friend get brutally murdered in front of their eyes. They can't believe what they're seeing as the man hunts down the other missing students and kills them one by one, punishing them for breaking the rules. That's 5 students down, with 22 players left to move on to the next round. Okay, this is getting deadly. They straight up murdered these kids in cold blood, and it's horrifying. The good news is that they didn't die in vain, because they at least taught the other classmates that escape is not an option. Quitting or running away is going to get us beaten to death, so we should forget about escaping and play like our lives depend on it. As terrifying as this might seem, one advantage here is that the entire training camp lasts for only 4 days. This means we have plenty of time to prepare for the next round, and if it were me, that's exactly what I would be doing every night. Now, as long as we don't have the Joker, the game is a lot less challenging to win, and with 22 players in the classroom, your chance of getting this deadly card is roughly 5%. Those are pretty good odds that you won't get it at the start of the game, but if someone tricks you to picking the Joker from their hand, we need to make sure that we're able to get rid of it without anyone realizing. That's why if it were me, I would be spending my entire night learning how to perform the 3-card Monty. This is a card trick used by both conmen and magicians because it uses sleight of hand to convince someone to pick the wrong card, even when they're watching closely. The way this works is you lay 3 cards out in front of you, showing everyone what they are before flipping them over. The players are going to keep their eyes on the card that they want, but what they don't know is that when the cards are shuffled, the dealer will throw the card from the top instead of the bottom. This makes the person watching think their card is back on the table when it's actually still in your hand, and hustlers all over the world make a killing off this trick because it's so effective. Getting rid of your Joker is the key to surviving this place, and we need to use our downtime wisely to perfect these tricks in order to make sure we never lose. Another strategy we can use is to hide the Joker behind a number card and show the other players our hand as if we had nothing to hide. When someone approaches to take that number card, instead of letting them grab it, I would hand it to them face down, but push the Joker card forward so they end up taking the wrong one. It's a dirty trick, but these are all legal moves according to the rules of the game, and if we're not finding loopholes to take advantage of, then we might as well give up. Disappointed with his class, the teacher blames the students for letting their friends get murdered, arguing that they should have convinced them to continue playing. That's when this nerd breaks down in guilt and climbs through the window before dropping down to escape. Terrified, the others yell at him, warning he'll be killed for breaking the rules, but it's useless. They can do nothing as the kid gets chased down and beaten to death in front of everyone. That's 6 students down, with 21 left to move on to the next round. With another student murdered, the class is feeling hopeless. Any one of them could be next, but that gives Ueda here an idea that might save them. She proposes that they reveal to each other what cards they have, and that way they can easily match pairs, letting them survive the round. If someone has a Joker, they won't be able to reveal their hand, and the others won't get tricked into drawing it. The girl asks her roommate if she wants to sign a contract with her, but Chinatsu is suspicious and stalls, saying she needs to talk it over with her best friend. Later, the teacher announces that with too many deaths, today's game has been cancelled, and the students will have to wait until tomorrow to gamble with their lives. The next morning, all the students check their cards, and to Chinatsu's relief, she didn't get the Joker. Suddenly, someone starts shouting, and the girl notices that the bully Kanda is ordering their classmates to reveal his hand. He's playing dirty to make sure he gets rid of another pair, but that's when this kid Takashima taunts him. The guy mocks the bully's friend for failing to escape yesterday, and that makes Kanda furious. He takes a swing and knocks him to the floor, but doesn't realize he's just walked right into a trap. The teacher intervenes, disappointed that his students will be fighting each other, and insists they all play the game respectfully. The kids decide to keep playing, but as Yokoyama here checks his cards, he suddenly looks around nervously. Recognizing his reaction, Chinatsu here realizes he's got the Joker card and must have picked it up after the other boy dropped it on the floor. The roommate suggests they keep it a secret, explaining she's already got a clever plan that will help them survive. Agreeing to help, the girls make a contract and get it approved by the teacher, selecting the roommate as their representative. Okay, these students are pretty clever. They figured out how to use the contract system to their benefit, but Takashima here is thinking 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He was trying to pick a fight to distract the others and make another player drop their cards onto the floor. That way he could drop his own cards and mix them up, giving away his Joker to the other boy without anyone knowing. Now, starting a confrontation is definitely a risky strategy, and with so much at stake, it's natural to think we should all work together. But there's one thing we have to be really careful about. The second rule from the TV stated that we can form teams with other players, but what's strange is that the government also promised to give us scholarships of our choice if we win with 7 or more teammates. That's incredibly suspicious, because it means they want you to form large teams, but what's ironic is that this will actually hurt your chances of winning. This might seem counterintuitive because by forming a team, one player will receive everyone's cards, making it easier to find more pairs, but it also means that less players are actually playing. If everyone in the class grouped in teams of 7 players, then the game would only be played between 3 people instead of 21, because they are the representatives of their teams. That means when one of them gets stuck with the Joker, then 6 other players will lose as well, increasing their odds of losing to roughly 33%, which is so much worse than playing by yourself. That's why if it were me, I would reject anyone's offer to form a team, because as long as we don't have the Joker, we can get rid of our cards as quickly as possible and move on to the next round. Now, there might be one exception, because getting a scholarship and leaving the game is obviously a benefit we can't ignore. The best way to take advantage of this is if we already have matching pairs to finish the game. The rules never said we can't hold on to our pairs, nor did it say that we can't stop other players from taking our cards. With this in mind, I would tell 7 people to find all the pairs they need to complete the round, and once we all have a winning hand, we form a contract in the middle of the game. That way, we all get scholarships, and one of us gets to leave the game permanently. This is a win-win scenario, and we can maximize what we can get out of the game without breaking any of the rules. Meanwhile, Takashima approaches the other boys and offers them a way to end this game early. He suggests they make a contract together, but the bully argues nobody would trust him after he started a fight. The kid points out if they don't, they'll have to play against each other and send the other boys to the correctional facility. It makes them realize he's their best shot at beating the game, and one by one, they all approach him to sign his document. Only the bully stays behind, and Takashima makes it clear he will only let him join if he begs for his help. Terrified of being alone, the kid bows his head and begs to be allowed on their team. As the boys head to the classroom, Ueda here signs her own contract with the remaining girls, making 3 teams in total, but soon, one of them is going to be eliminated. The representatives gather around the table and start playing again, doing anything they can to get rid of their cards. Suddenly, Yokoyama here has his last card taken from his hand, making him the first survivor. Someone else must have the Joker, but as this kid looks up, he realizes one of the girl's cards has a scratch mark. The boy had marked the Joker earlier to make sure he knew who had it, and takes the card from the other girl, planning out his next move to win. With only 3 representatives left, Ueda here argues that her roommate should quit the game because there are fewer people on her team, and that means less students will be punished as a result. Breaking under the pressure, Kana here agrees with the girl and asks the teacher if she can give up, but there's a problem. He tells her none of the players are allowed to quit, and that means she has no choice but to continue playing. Coming up with a plan, the girl promises to help the others win, but they have to trust whatever she tells them. Suspicious, the other player knows she's up to something, and Kana asks her if she has any aces. Reluctantly, the student reveals that she does, and the other girl seizes the opportunity to execute her plan. Laying all of her cards on the table, the roommate reveals that the girl only needs to take this card in order to win. The player decides to believe her and takes it from her opponent, discovering that it's exactly what she needed. Kana was telling the truth, and that means Ueda is free to go home, while her team passes on to the next round. There are now only 2 more teams left in the game, and this girl is going to pull off a crazy stunt to wipe out the competition. Okay, if I were these kids, I would be really pissed off right now. This girl figured out that being a representative gives you the only advantage to forming a team, because now she gets to go home while her teammates have to stay for the next round. It's a clever strategy, and if for some reason we had no choice but to join a team, I would have insisted on being the representative. It's the only way to actually free yourself from the game, and anyone who is too nervous to take the responsibility of playing isn't thinking clearly. Now, this actually brings up an interesting point, because the best way to understand the game makers is to look carefully at what actions they decide to reward. During the teacher's presentation, he told the kids that this training camp is being used by the government to filter out the useless people from Japanese society. Those are some pretty harsh words, but it actually tells us a lot about how we should be playing this game. It's important to point out that Old Maid is a game based on pure luck, and therefore, the only real way to gain an advantage is to manipulate the rules so that lies and deceit are rewarded. Instead of picking a game like chess where the best strategy wins, they're using a game of luck as a test to see who accepts their fate or fights for their survival. Anyone who plays this game strictly by the book is going to lose, and that's exactly why they should be figuring out ways to help the representative win. The good news is there are no rules against communicating with your teammates about what cards they should pick. That's why if it were me, I would have secretly told my team members to form a circle around the table so they can see everyone's cards. That way they can give me a signal if I'm about to take someone's joker and make sure I pick a different card instead. Cheating this way is clearly not against the rules because it isn't mentioned in the video, and we should be using every trick in the book to make sure they aren't getting sent to a death game that's even worse. We should also remember that the teacher encouraged us to form groups, even though this strategy is sending more students to re-education camps, and it means that we need to think for ourselves if we want the best results. This is why if I were still in the game before the next round begins, I'd tell everyone not to form teams and play the game on our own. This way, only one student will lose each round, and after 4 days, that means only 4 students will be punished. Right now, if this one kid gets stuck with the joker, 7 kids will be sent to prison from just a single round, and it's a clear sign that none of these students are paying attention. Taking one of the boys' cards, Kana here makes a pair, and that means she only has 2 left. He knows for a fact that one of them is the joker, but she's already 1 step ahead of him. Shuffling her hand, the girl lays down her cards on the table, making sure to cover them and insists that if he takes the one on the right, he'll win. The boy does not trust her and tries to check for the joker, but he can't see the scratch mark on either of them. Suspicious, he asks if she knows about the scratches, but the girl has no idea what he's talking about. Takashima here is trapped, and with no way to tell if she's lying, he selects the card on the left, but that was his biggest mistake. Taking it into his hand, he discovers that it's the joker, and his entire team might lose the game if the girl doesn't take it back. Kana carefully judges her choices before reaching out and stealing his 4 of hearts, giving her the final pair to win the game. The boys panic, knowing that he's just lost, and their entire team will be sent to the correctional facility. Suddenly, these men come into the room and shoot the boys with their syringe guns, paralyzing them instantly. There's nothing the others can do to save them as the losers are dragged out of the classroom. It's horrific, and the girls realize that if they win tomorrow, they'll finally be free. That's 15 students down, 1 pass, with only 11 left to move on to the next round. That night, Chinatsu meets up with Kana, and her friend reveals there's a secret gap along this fence they can escape through. Surprised, she asks how the roommate knows this, and the girl explains that her older sister had been sent here to participate in the death game. Her sister made this hole to help the others escape, but her class betrayed her and was sent to the correctional facility. Kana here joined this class so she could hopefully rescue her, but in order to find her sister, she'll need to lose the game. It's terrifying, but she'll do whatever it takes, even if that means sacrificing her freedom. Later, the girls return to their dorm when Minako walks out of the room to confront her. She's furious that in the last game, the roommate broke her promise to let the others win and got all the boys eliminated, including her crush Takashima. Minako does not trust her anymore and walks away, but this makes her best friend worried. Chinatsu follows the girl outside and tries to reassure her they'll be okay since their roommate wants to lose the game, but the girl has had enough. Frustrated, she reveals that it's time for her to take matters into her own hands, making it clear that she won't help her win anymore. Minako storms off and leaves the girl behind, determined to survive at any cost. Okay, this girl has got a point. With so much at stake, trusting people is always a risky thing to do, but thinking this way doesn't make sense if there can be multiple winners. The rules clearly explain that the only way you can lose this game is if you or your team are the last to have the Joker card. Now, I've already pointed out that playing alone has a strategic advantage over playing as a team, but if the girls were thinking clearly, they'd realize that these are not their only options. If you're playing alone, you still need to use the cards from other players to form pairs so you can empty your hand, and that's why if it were me, instead of playing alone or forming a team, I would make an alliance with just 1 or 2 people that I trust. If we secretly agree to show each other our cards, we can easily exchange them to make pairs and pass to the next round. This strategy lets us keep playing independently without forming contracts by using the benefits of multiple hands of cards to win the game. Now this is a really important point, because playing normally has one huge disadvantage. While you're spending all of your time running around trying to get rid of your cards, more and more cards are being paired up by others and taken out of the game. The fewer players there are left in the game, the likelihood of you being tricked into picking the Joker increases rapidly, and that's exactly why the smartest approach here is to find our pairs and leave the game as quickly as possible. Wasting time talking or overthinking would be the biggest mistake you could make, because every second we stay in the game statistically hurts our chances of passing to the next round. To make sure we have the best chance of winning, we have to realize that at the start of each round, there are more cards to make a pair with than any other point in the game. If each of these students have 7 cards to start with, their teacher has to provide multiple decks. But as more pairs match up, it's harder to get the match you need, and that's why having an unofficial alliance with trusted friends helps solve this problem. This way, we won't have to worry about wasting time looking for pairs or accidentally taking the Joker from someone else. The next morning, 11 students show up to class, and now that everyone has gathered to participate, Minako here decides to execute her plan. Standing at the front of the class, she asks the students to sign a contract with her, claiming that she will guarantee a win as their representative. The others don't understand why she's so confident, but that's when the girl reveals that her roommate has promised to lose. It takes them all by surprise, but Kana here confirms that it's true. Since this is the last day of camp, there's a good chance they'll finally be able to escape, but the other students are too terrified to trust them. They don't want to be sent to the correctional facility, but the girl argues that this is the best option they have. Suddenly, this boy stands up and offers to join her contract, and with the first member of her team secured, the girl grabs a form and invites him to sign it. The other students begin standing up to join the team and gamble for their lives in the final round of the Joker game. Later, Minako starts making pairs from her collection of cards and points out that she has a better chance to win the game before the other players do. The roommate reminds her that there's always a chance she ends up with the Joker, but they both know that with the team, she now has a lot more at stake. Hearing this, Chinatsu remembers what the girl told her last night and realizes that her best friend has protected her so far, but it's time to fight her own battles. Deciding to join the table, she refuses to let her friend go through this alone, and with the Joker in hand, the final game begins. As the day goes on, the girl is lagging behind with 4 cards in her hand, but that's when the roommate suddenly takes the Joker. Playing it cool, Kana asks Minako what card she has and starts guessing numbers, making the girl nervous. She now knows that based on her body language, her opponent needs a 5 and gives her a choice, placing 2 cards on the table. The roommate tells her that the one on the left is what she wants, but warns her that the other card is the Joker. This one gamble could determine who wins or loses, and Minako reaches out, carefully picking one of the cards. Flipping it over, she discovers it was actually the Joker, and that means Kana lied. Surprised, this girl asks her why she broke her promise to lose, and the roommate reveals this was how her older sister lost in her game. Her classmates tricked her into trusting them and promised to save the sister from the correctional facility, but broke that promise just like Kana lied to Minako about the Joker. Okay, this girl is wiping the floor with these kids. She's using a great strategy because it's turning a game of pure luck into a game of trust. Now they have to make a decision based on if they believe the girl or not, and fortunately for her, this makes them a lot more predictable. By telling them which card they should choose, she can actually influence their decision of which card to pick, and that's why it's an excellent strategy. Now, if we were playing against her, it would be difficult not to fall into the same trap, and that's exactly why we need to base our choice on different factors to make sure we don't end up with the Joker. The thing all of these players are forgetting is that they have a lot more information at their disposal than they realize. Right now, Chinatsu here has 3 cards, her friend has 3, and their roommate has 3, which means there's a total of 9 cards in play. This is extremely valuable information because if 11 players began the game with 7 cards each, then there should be a discard pile of 68 cards and 34 pairs in it. The smartest thing to do in this situation is to use that discard pile and figure out which pairs have already left the game. By the process of elimination, we can find out exactly which cards are still left in play, giving us a much better idea of whether or not this girl is lying. This strategy would be most useful at the start of the game, and that's why if it were me, I would take the cards of one friend and ask them to sit next to the teacher so they can write down every single pair of cards that get submitted. This would help us figure out which pairs haven't been submitted yet, and which cards are running low that needs to be prioritized for pairing as soon as possible. The reason this helps us in this situation is because if Kana here tells us that one of her cards is an ace, for example, then by counting the cards in the discard pile that have already been paired, we can figure out if the girl is lying to us or not. Instead of trying to read her body language or facial expressions, we can simply find the information firsthand. Once this strategy is used, it makes it almost impossible for Kana here to keep playing this way, and she'll be more likely to get stuck with the Joker while the rest of us can make safer trades to complete the game. Now, this isn't the only method we should be considering, because there's a great technique that we can learn from professional poker players, and it all has to do with marked cards. In 2012, Phil Ivey entered a Baccarat game, noting that every deck has tiny differences from each other based on the way they were cut in the factory. For example, the borders might be misaligned, or the quality of cardstock might be different if you know what to look for. In this case, Phil realized that certain cards had an asymmetrical diamond pattern on the back, and using that to his advantage, he managed to convince the dealer to turn the card sideways so he could figure out the value range that was being dealt. This is known as edge sorting, and Phil Ivey was able to use this to win more than 7 million euros in only 2 nights. Now, these girls aren't professional poker players, but they can definitely use the strategy in Old Maid because we only need to figure out who has the Joker. That's why if it were me, at the beginning of the game, I would request to look at the Joker card to analyze the print pattern and memorize what slight differences there are from the cards in the other decks. If we don't feel like there's enough discernible difference for the untrained eye, then I would simply make a small indent with my thumbnail on the top edge of the card, so that in a situation like this, we could secretly tell which one is the Joker and avoid it like the plague. Taking her turn, Chinatsu grabs the Joker from her friend, leaving her with 2 cards left. Minako only needs 1 more pair to win, and her team is relieved that they have the best chance of survival. Acting quickly, the girl takes a card from Kana and makes the final pair. Her entire team celebrates, happy they don't have to play the game anymore, and thank her for helping them, but the girl is not happy. With 1 move, she's managed to avoid re-education, but has just trapped her best friend. The team quickly leaves the classroom and heads back home, relieved that this nightmare is over. That's 15 students down, 10 pass, with only 2 more to go. The last 2 students will have to keep playing against each other until there's only 1 winner, but that's when the teacher interrupts. He reveals that Kana's sister is no longer at the correctional facility, and that means her entire rescue plan is for nothing. The girl breaks down, saddened that she'll never be able to reunite with her sister, but Chinatsu insists they keep going. At least one of them will be free, and with no good options, the students continue. The roommate has only 1 card left to pair, and her friend offers a choice, insisting she's going to help. The girl warns her that this card on the right is the Joker, but if she takes the other one, she'll win. Chinatsu is willing to sacrifice her freedom for her friends, but the roommate doesn't trust her. Nervous, she takes the card off the table and looks at it, but discovers she's just taken the Joker. Now, the girl is doomed. Kana is terrified of what's going to happen next, but decides to make one last offer, hoping she might win. Setting down her 2 cards on the table, the student tells her this card is the Joker, but then she brushes her bangs. Chinatsu here remembers the girl only does that when she's lying or nervous, and this must be a trick. The student refuses to lose and takes the card on the right, discovering it's an ace. She's got her final pair, and now her friend will be sent to the correctional facility. The guards drag the girl outside, but that's when the orderlies notice Chinatsu is watching them. One of them approaches the girl, telling her to go home, but she suddenly pulls out a syringe gun and shoots him with it. Panicking, she aims at the guards and quickly paralyzes the men, leaving them seizing on the ground. She's here to rescue her friend from going to the correctional facility and escape the school, but just as they're about to run away, the teacher intervenes, throwing her on the ground. The man has Chinatsu cornered, and the girl backs away trying to shoot him, but she's all out of ammo. The teacher makes it clear both of the students will now be sent to the correctional facility as punishment, but he suddenly collapses to the ground. In his back is a dart, and Chinatsu realizes that he's just been shot by her friend. With nobody to stop them, the girls run for their lives and leave the campus, having learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes skipping school is the best decision you can make.
But what do you think? How would you beat Joker Game? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.